Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to another edition of the Toxic Happy Hour, where we are toxic against scams that are delaying the adoption of sound money, and we're just generally happy, and Bitcoin is quality life. Today in the studio, we have Denver Bitcoin, a gas power typhoon from Denver. Mining Bitcoin powered on gas. First off, first priorities. Denver, what are you drinking today?
I've got myself a delicious Coke Zero on ice.
Nice, good choice on ice. That's good.
Yes.
PUBLORD, you don't let us down. What are you doing today?
Well, I usually have my beer, but it's much later here, and I had 2 pints earlier, so I'm just on water before bed since we're going late.
Nice.
All right, I'm having my coffee in my Copenhagen cup today. So, all right, that was the most important priorities. We got that settled. Denver, what's going on in your part of the Bitcoin world? What are you up to?
I'm just, I've been hearing from all my connections that I've had in the oil and gas industry from, the time that I spent there, and the people that I've connected with via Bitcoin Twitter that are mining, and the people that are reaching out to me, just cold DMing me on Bitcoin Twitter that actually have some energy stake and are some serious real people, connect with on LinkedIn and things. Those kinds of things, I'm more bullish than I was yesterday, right? It's just day after day, the inevitability seems more clear, seems more likely, and makes more sense.
Right. So can you explain what exactly it is you're doing with Bitcoin mining powered by gas? Is it something, it may be you have heard talk before on, I think, Adam Meister a long time ago, with access to very cheap or free gas. You share some of the revenue with drilling companies or something. Can you explain exactly what you do?
Well, for me, I'm not sharing revenue with anything like that, right? But I mean, all those kinds of things, I guess, could be happening in some capacity with other people. But I kind of came into it as a third party, right? So I saw this potential to invest in an infrastructure that would allow me to buy Bitcoin, right? Trade money for Bitcoin over time, dollar cost average at every price, right? By mining. And I'd get a discount, right? If I'm mining for a profit, what I'm doing is buying Bitcoin at a discount, especially if my goal is to hold, which our business thesis was. So I kind of came in as a third party because, oil and gas operators that have this problem, who are not only is it, waste gas or free, it actually costs them money, right? It actually is a problem for them. So, but they're not that keen on spending the money that it takes to acquire the infrastructure to do this on site. It's relatively capital intensive. I mean, as people know, miners aren't cheap, right? Especially good ones. But really the, power generation isn't cheap, right? Whether you're going to do just even a combustion engine that you rebore and make work for nat gas, essentially a compressor, or if you're going to do some kind of a micro turbine engine or something, it's not cheap. So, early on, 2018, I guess, they weren't keen on spending that money. So I kind of came to the party to the table as a third party, saying, "Hey, I'd provide the capital and help you solve this problem. You guys allow us to have some infrastructure on your well site, and we'll help solve your problem. Kind of just no charge either way, and I'm gonna take the risk, but you're gonna provide me with free energy." So. And it's a symbiotic relationship, right? So that's how I came to the table. I don't know if a lot of people are going to be doing that anymore. I think that oil and gas operators, it'll start to make sense for them to build their own infrastructure. They'll be more committed to the investment, and maybe they'll go borrow money from a bank, but why would they need a third party to come get involved? I might be wrong, but that's kind of how I fell into it. And so I commissioned Upstream Data, the only person I could find in the world that was even thinking about this kind of thing, to build the things that I thought would work and he thought would work. Steve Barber, was sitting there doing this in real life, and so he was able to advise me on what would make sense, and I went and found the capital and took the risk.
So let me get this straight. The drillers or the oil drillers or whatever they are, they have leftover gas, and normally it's a problem. They need to pay for it, and you told them, look, I'll handle that. You don't have to pay to get rid of it. I'll just take it off your hands. We don't like no money is going either way, and then you invest in the miners and the infrastructure and set it up, and you basically have free gas to mine Bitcoin for yourself on a daily basis.
Yeah, when you say extra gas, I mean, a lot of this has to do with geography, right? So there's a lot of oil and gas wells that are out in the middle of nowhere. There's no infrastructure to bring this gas to market. So, but when you find crude, especially when you're fracking, gas comes with the crude, right? You can't just leave the gas in the ground and then pull the crude out. It's not gonna work. So, what you have to do typically is flare this gas, and oftentimes flare or vent it, and oftentimes the regulators will either fine you for the amount of gas you flared, right? Or you have to buy essentially like emissions permits. And so you can flare X amount of thousands of cubic feet per month. And if you go over that, then they hit you with, they'll get really upset. They'll hit you with fees, take away your flare permits, and then you can't even produce oil, those kinds of things. So there's this regulatory scrutiny that comes along with it. It's not like it costs them money necessarily, as it comes out of the ground, but it does cost them, right? It's a cost of doing business. It's a cost of producing crude.
Sure.
Now, if there was a pipeline there, they would just plumb into the pipeline and potentially bring their gas to market. But the cost of installing infrastructure for a pipeline, especially if you don't have that much gas, is never going to be economic. So this is a middle of the road, especially solution to help them reduce costs, reduce emissions. And they can do it at least at a break-even price. For them, that's a win. So it's
right.
It's an innovation for the upstream producers, right?
Right. So, and before I turn it to you, PUBLORD, so you can actually get a say here as well.
No problem.
So when you use this gas, and isn't it still being emissioned into the atmosphere and still needs to be paid for? Or when you burn it the way you do, like when you use it, there's no longer a penalty or fine?
Well, so there's different terminology that gets kind of wonky in the oil field, in my opinion, right? Like some oil and energy veterans. So these things kind of I guess maybe look different through my eyes. One thing that is common is something called lease use, right, or on lease, right? So that's oil and gas operators, they use their gas often, right? Especially because they need to run on-site equipment. Sometimes they need to have heater treaters so that lines don't freeze. They need to have separators to separate oil and gas and water. Those kinds of things, they're out in the middle of nowhere. They don't have grid access typically. They need to generate their own power. So they already have these kind of engines on site, and they don't get, that doesn't as much get factored into their emissions as just venting it or flaring it, because they're, when you combust it through an engine, right, there's filters, and there's just there's a use for it, right? It's been combusted. That's why flare is even different than vent sometimes, depending upon the regulatory body. So you're right. In some capacity, there's a terminology difference, but I think ultimately the same thing with companies that come and combust the gas just to push electricity back to the grid, right? They kind of build their own little micro infrastructure and sell energy back to the grid. It's a better process than simply flaring or venting, and especially as far as the regulators are concerned, it is. So yeah, it's a 360-degree win.
Well,
Nice.
yeah. Quick question I had is, you were saying they'd be very happy just to break even. Like, what losses you say is the cost of doing business for them? Like, what losses is their cost of doing business versus what you offer?
Well, no. So that's kind of the balance, right? So it depends on the gas, how much gas they have. The regulatory environment matters, but right. So if you have an insane amount of gas, it actually might make sense to raise millions and millions of dollars to build a pipeline, because you'll be able to get a return on that investment really quickly because you're selling a lot of gas to the market, right? You're missing out on a whole lot of hydrocarbon revenue, right? So, but there's oftentimes these other wells that, they're just maybe burping, 50,000 cubic feet a day, which sounds maybe like a lot, but 50 MCF is pretty minimal. and they could more or less, they could capture all of that, right? Combust all of that and mine Bitcoin, even potentially at a profit. That's huge for them, right? That's a new revenue stream potentially, or certainly a removal of a cost. The bigger companies with the really, natural gas rich wells, they end up building pipelines, but maybe it makes sense for them to do this in the meantime or something, right? There's a whole bunch of factors that come into play. And then you start talking about just the fact that you can bring energy to market without any gatekeepers, right? I mean, Iran is a great example where now if the Iranian government doesn't want to deal with OPEC, they can just sell to the Bitcoin network. And nobody can stop them from selling that energy to the Bitcoin network.
Sure.
And they'll get a fair price for it, right? So there's no sanctions on that. So there's all these implications, right? Anybody that has excess energy over demand might as well mine Bitcoin. It's going to change the entire game.
Really interesting. I mean, quite an entrepreneur you are. So you had a background in this industry. You saw the opportunity. You went for it. And I guess what you're saying is now the companies, the oil and gas companies, are starting to get an idea of the value of this. So from now on, they will probably be taking the initiative themselves. Would you say that now it's kind of like a closed window of opportunity? Like you were early, that's why you have an opportunity, had an opportunity, but from now on, it's hard for someone else to come from outside and start doing this?
Yes, I think I'm saying almost that at least. To say I was really early, I guess I was just early enough, right? I was lucky enough to moving as fast as I could. Because when I was, I was calling oil and gas companies at one point and trying to talk to them about this, right? Saying, hey, listen, I think I have a solution that will cost you nothing out of pocket. And they pretty much weren't open to the idea. Plus oil prices weren't great. And so, these companies are already kind of defensive. So, but now you look at things, you got companies like Equinor, which is a huge producer of energy, and they've contracted some company out of Denver that is more or less doing the same thing. It's happening, right? So, and part of the oil and gas industry, at least, and this is all from my perspective, I was in the oil and gas industry, maybe call it like a year and a half, 2 years, right? But I was living and breathing it. I was on the road going to conventions. It was because I wanted to understand it, and then I got excited about what I started to understand, and I just rabbit holed. And one thing that I realized was these companies don't move until other companies move, right? It's like the mid-sized producers don't make these big kind of decisions. They don't switch their entire accounting system to a certain software unless they already see these bigger companies, like Chevron or Anadarko or whatever, Ursa, these really big petroleum companies make that decision. Then they start looking into it. They're slow to move, right? They're kind of archaic in that way, but when they move, then it's this all at once kind of a thing, and they all switch. So I think we're kind of approaching that point. Bitcoin's still surviving. That every day that it survives is a little piece of credibility toward this process, and the willingness to invest capital to build infrastructure to capitalize on this innovation. So, it's going to happen. It's
yeah, right.
It sounds like, yeah.
Go ahead.
To say, yeah, it sounds like you just need a Michael Saylor type moment of someone that goes all in, the first company to set up this type of infrastructure, and everyone else starts to see, wait, they're doing what, and dominoes start to fall. We'll see.
Well, right, and that's what I was afraid of, right? I was afraid of having this idea and then not being able to do anything with it, right? So the first thing I looked to do was build my own generator or find somebody to build it or whatever, and I couldn't find anything that was making sense for what I was going to be using it for, and until I found Steve Barber, thank God, right? So I didn't have to figure out to build it myself. This guy could do it way cheaper than I can start from scratch and do it, right, myself. So, and he's pushing the industry. It's a win-win. So, these things kind of fell into place, and I got really bullish, right? I just started thinking, the people who have the gas are going to wake up, and they're going to be willing to put the money up and build the infrastructure. If I could go find somebody that's not, and I bring money, they won't care anymore because I'm solving their problem, and I'll be able to get exposed to this. I've said it before though, at the end of the day, would it have been better to put every dollar just into Bitcoin at that price? maybe, I mean, time will tell, but maybe. So it's really hard to beat Bitcoin's returns. I'll say that. That's something to always look back on. Like, hey, if I just put this money I'm about to spend in Bitcoin, I bet you I won't beat it anywhere else. It becomes a baseline for investment, right? But why invest in anything if you could just buy Bitcoin and do better?
It's very hard to do business that gives a better return than Bitcoin itself. However, once Bitcoin has come into full fruition, let's say it takes over as money of the world, which I believe it will. We'll talk about that as well. And the value increase no longer is more than GDP growth because it has lived into the full potential. Will you still be mining then? Because then I think mining will make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, I have no reason to stop. Right. That's. I mean, there are costs to mining on on the oil field. It's not. I mean, there's maintenance to these engines, right? You need to change out parts. Right. Sometimes things break. So yeah, I mean, there's still costs, but I'm willing to absorb all those costs because even if I get to a point where it's break even, which it hasn't been. I mean, we got pretty close right at the halving, and then the crash. It was like, whoa, there was still a lot of hash rate on the network. And my costs are pretty darn low, but I want to support the network, right? I want to be somebody that's invested in this process because it makes Bitcoin defensible, right? It takes away the grid risk, takes away a lot of the regulatory risk because we're solving an emissions issue. It's really defensive. So I wanted to push that and be a part of that process. Right.
You're using a pool? Are you using Slush Pool or?
Yeah, I'm using Slush.
Right. So there, anyone who has a miner or X amount of miners can go in and be part of the pool, and the pool overall is looking for block. Whenever the pool finds block, they will split the reward with a percentage you have of the hashing power, right?
Correct. Yeah, and I'll give Slush a little bit of a plug. I give them a lot of crap on Twitter, just because PPLNS when you only get paid once you find a block, right? I'm absorbing a lot of risk as a miner that way because if we mine for 20 hours and then my computers go down right before we find a block, right? I get hit for my rewards, where a lot of other pools offer what they call PPS, pay per share, where you get paid just for the amount of work you contribute, whether you find a block or not. So that means the pool is taking on that risk. So I give them crap, but I will say their Brain OS, their firmware for Antminers is really optimal for something like what we're doing, where we have these computers in a really remote location. We don't have it's difficult to get our hands on them because they're out in the middle of absolute nowhere. So the ability to kind of remote start computers and troubleshoot all over pretty minimal bandwidth internet is really helpful. So those kinds of things really kind of help make the investment make more sense from a risk perspective. But at the end of the day, you're mining on the oil field and things happen. So
right. So you're interested in Bitcoin. You want to accumulate Bitcoin this way. It's basically dollar cost averaging for you. And why are you interested in Bitcoin? What do you see as the future, and why do you believe it'll be worth more?
Well, I just see it as this because it's an energy demand market, right? It's an emerging energy demand market. It's anywhere you are, whether it's a hamster on a wheel in the off the side of the road. If you have a 3G signal, there are ways in which to sell that energy you're generating to this network and get paid for it. Right now, you're not going to get much on your hamster wheel, but it just opens the door for so many conversations, so many economic models change. For example, look at power generation, right? So the companies that build really, really expensive and intricate turbine engines or build, whether it be water turbine or natural gas turbine, or the companies that help to generate the power, part of their issue is the return on investment from that infrastructure build and from that commitment. So what they need to look for is, hey, how long until we get paid via the electricity we sell, until we meet our return on our investment. And with Bitcoin mining, it changes that model because they no longer have to look at electricity demand. They no longer have to think like, okay, well, if we're supplying power to, we're helping supply power to this town that's out in the middle of nowhere or whatever, we no longer have to worry about how they turn off all their lights at nighttime, or they go to work during the day, and build that into our electricity sales model. Because anytime that we're not at full capacity, we'll just mine Bitcoin with the surplus. And so we can build our model around this continuous demand, and balance it out between those we're providing power for and those and mining Bitcoin, right? So that discussion just flips everything on its head. And I think I'm just so excited to watch it play out. It's very slow. I'm very anxious. It's suspenseful, but it's happening.
Right. Are you an engineer by background, since
No.
you're working in the oil industry? No?
No, I wasn't. I was working with a software product in the oil industry. So I was dealing with all these operators and their pumpers, asking them, what problems are they having with recording volumetric data on site so that they can report to regulators. And what I found was every single one of these guys was having issues with flared gas, right? And first of all, they're all under-reporting, okay? None of them report real numbers. All right, I'm not going to name any names, but every single oil and gas
none
operator,
of them.
they never over-report their volumes, okay? Let's be real. But it's a huge problem.
Any names, but it's all of them.
Yes, I'm not going to name any names, but it's every single one that does it, or at least that has reported 1 MCF. It probably was 2. So that's because they're getting just killed by the regulators, and the regulators only scrutinize one direction. They only increase scrutiny. Anytime that they pull back regulatory limits and things, it's a miracle, and stock prices get excited, and there's all this discussion because it almost never happens. So this is something that's going to become increasingly more relevant, more practical, and a better investment, because the cost will only go up for those volumetric permits. Especially you get some kind of people in office that are very anti-hydrocarbon. They think the oil industry is the worst thing ever. They're ignorant, but with the power of the pen, they can screw up your business model real quick. So this is going to be something that helps oil and gas producers defend themselves, and defend themselves against a lack of demand. Right? Demand drops. Okay, we'll just mine Bitcoin with our energy. Right?
Absolutely.
So,
Puppy, do you have any questions before we start talking about Denver's expectations for the current bull run and the future and potential hyper-Bitcoinization? Do you have any questions to all of these things that we don't know too much about, but that we learned about today?
Yeah. I'd heard about this type of mining and using gas, and I had to bring myself up to speed a little bit. What I find most fascinating, and I wish you luck in this, is that I love people that can take 2 things that they're passionate about, or one thing, and combine it with Bitcoin. So to take something that you're interested in, oil and gas, it's like the people over at Citadel that they're graphic artists and all of this, and they marry it with Bitcoin. So I'm always interested when you see people come up with a new idea on how Bitcoin fits into the world.
Yeah, and the timing was weird. That's a great point to bring up, because I was learning about them both almost at the exact same time. And then I kind of got to this place where I was like, I'm learning about the same thing almost. Like I'm learning about this symbiotic or this harmonious relationship, and it was impossible for me to ignore. It was, it was lucky. Had I been separated, maybe I wouldn't have made the connection. But
right, interesting. So Denver, do you believe that we're currently in a bull market in Bitcoin, and what are your expectations, like price wise, timing wise, or you just mine and focus on accumulating and don't care too much? What's your thoughts?
I mean, it's hard not to watch price, right? Because I'm so heavily invested. But I'm very bullish. I think we're in the midst of a bull run. Do I think there's going to be drawdowns? Yeah, I'm happy with them, right? I mean, I think it shakes out a lot of miners that raised a lot of debt and maybe aren't making that great use of power, right? So they're not actually, using energy in a way that it's demanded by the Bitcoin network, or the Bitcoin network, supplements them. It's almost this like rigid plug in a bunch of miners in South Dakota.
Efficient, basically.
They're forcing the business model, in my opinion. But it shakes them out because price drops scare them, because they have much tighter margins, and they have much higher expectations, and they're always thinking the price is going to go up faster than it will. So at least from all the ones I've spoken to. So I think we're moving up. I think I don't know what the limit is, right? I've never even felt a Bitcoin bull run. I came into this early 2018 as Bitcoin was crashing.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't know what a new all-time high feels like, and I don't remember. I've never seen it, right? I've never seen the kind of movement. So my bet is always, I just try to look at it in terms of once people realize what is even the speculation, you know, the speculative value of something that empowers energy producers in this way. And sometimes energy producers are nation states, right? Because some nations, their only export, the only way they can really make money is either with their human capital, what they produce, and pretty much all they produce is hydrocarbons. So, I mean, I think
like Venezuela.
Like Venezuela, like I mean, even you know, Brazil, because you know 75% of their power is hydroelectric, but they, you know, they have to ship off any excess, I think, to Paraguay, and they essentially power Paraguay, from what I understand. So like, there's all of these implications. You know, Saudi Arabia, Iran, especially, right?
So you mentioned Iran. They got into state mining of Bitcoin, didn't they?
Yeah, so did Venezuela. Venezuela nationalized their mining pool. So
they're also doing it?
Yeah, I mean, they have so much oil and with it so much natural gas. If they're not mining off of natural gas right now, it would surprise me. It would really surprise me. I mean, I don't know if they'd be talking about it because then the U.S. would come and sanction them. But I think they're doing it.
Didn't they always already? Didn't U.S. sanction Venezuela already?
I don't know. I mean, I know that it's, you know, it's a loophole. It's an immutable energy demand market, right? Nobody can stop you from selling energy to this market. It's open. So those who try to stop others from joining will fail, and so they'll end up joining themselves to compete. That's the way I see it, right?
Right. That's the game theory there. So actually, what it sounds like to me, and I mean that's also what I expected, is that some of these countries on the fringe of the political society in the world that are less, you know, less friends with US, they're the ones that are getting into Bitcoin first on a state level.
Yeah, it makes sense because they're the ones feeling the pain, right? I mean, from whether it be from OPEC, you know, regulations or, you know, limits to the amount of barrels of oil that they can produce and sell every day, that limits their ability to grow as a country. It's an intentional, right? I mean, it's an intentional mechanism of control in a way. So, you know, when this kind of reality starts settling in, which, I mean, it's only a matter of time, right? I mean, we're talking about it right now, live on the internet. We're small voices, but these things travel, and you know, it's going to get weird. I think. I think it's going to get a little daunting, even.
Right. So we have a question from Mervin. Actually, we have several questions, but let's take this one first. Mervin is asking, or he's saying, I can imagine, besides cheap energy, the hardware gets more sophisticated as well. How difficult is it to stay competitive on that front?
Well, considering our power source, right? For the most part, you know, we can compete with anybody. You know, there's a cost to getting new hardware, and it's a cost that, as a business, we weren't going to necessarily invest in, right? I mean, we've since we started, I've upgraded a few computers, right? I found some good deals on eBay and sent in some kind of next gen esque ASICs, but you know, for the most part, it didn't make sense for us to go try to, you know, for me to go raise an extra $125,000 or whatever to buy the next, you know, the latest model of you know, Antminer or What's Miner. So because, you know, the cost of the power is so low, right? So it made sense to not take that gigantic of a risk on that hardware side. Let's risk more of our capital toward power generation, and then we can always upgrade miners as we get to, you know, particular milestones. And one aspect of our company that's built in is we don't sell, right? So we haven't sold a single sat that we've mined, right? Again, this is a Bitcoin play. I invested in a means to accumulate Bitcoin at every price, but I get a little bit of a discount because I spent all this money up front, right? So that was the entire play from my perspective. And when you solve someone's problem, they like you to stay. So, you know, I don't worry too much about hardware. I think they're completely overpriced because they're priced by their efficiency, which to me assumes that there's a cost to the power. And of course, there's always a cost of power, but they're almost building it around the average electricity cost, like retail electricity cost, which is, I don't think, going to be as relevant. Maybe that'll change. Maybe some ASIC producers will fill the void and build some that maybe aren't as efficient, but are still computationally very powerful, and that would be more ideal for what I think is the oil field, and they don't cost $6,000 each just for a 5 times increase in hash rate, but it's 75 times increase in cost. It doesn't make a lot of sense from my perspective. I'm glad that we didn't do that, and we just took a lot of our cash and just held Bitcoin. We bought Bitcoin as well. So rather than go buy all these expensive miners, let's buy some Bitcoin. So is this, buy the second market, and then we'll win either way.
Right. Is this your company? You're the sole owner, or you're like a big group, or like?
No, I'm partnered with my dad.
Okay.
My dad's company. Yeah. We're 50-50 partners on it. So
cool, Dad.
Yeah.
Like it.
Oh, and it's awesome, man. He's a boomer, totally. And he's a really smart guy, though. He's sharp, and he kind of comes from a telecommunications satellite kind of side of things, and so he's no fool, but it's still fun to watch him start to consider these implications. Just today, I was at over his house telling him about Iran. I was talking about exporting energy to the Bitcoin network rather than making trade deals, and I could see his wheels turning, and his he kind of had this crap face, because he's a real patriot too, right? So he sees the threat to the control that the United States government has. But he also sees that it's not really possible to stop. So, and he's invested in it. So it's I see the struggle, and it's a lot of fun, man. It keeps things really exciting.
Right. Pavi, any questions for you? I think we found someone who can speak more than me.
Oh man. On this topic, I could go all day.
Yeah. I think it's great. We have, since we started this like a month or 2 months ago, having different guests with different backgrounds, because, you and I, we go straight into hyper-Bitcoinization right away. So it's nice to have someone on with a different perspective and to learn more about their background with Bitcoin. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're absolutely learning something that we didn't have much knowledge about, PUBLORD. So yeah, it's really interesting. But if we should talk about like Bitcoin as a money, what do you see as the future for Bitcoin? Do you believe that it is money now? Will it take over as money of the world? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's money. I think it's a really powerful, it's a universal bearer asset, right? So this kind of universal collateral, much like gold, but the custodial aspect of Bitcoin, and as well as the authentication aspect, where there's no need to authenticate, is kind of adds some intensity to that powerful, or how powerful that tool is. So as a tool, for example, I think it makes sense to be able to loan people money across the world, as well as buy property across the world and things like that. Because if you can denominate, have a holding of Bitcoin, some kind of a collateralization, nobody's worried about the person not being not getting paid because there's this custodial guarantee. Nor is it like they sold us bad Bitcoin, or they put up bad Bitcoin collateral because it's on the network, it's verified. Those just kind of slight differences actually change, it's trustless. So I can loan somebody money. If they send me some Bitcoin, I'd be happy to send them some dollars, because if they don't show up, I know I'm at least 70% collateralized on my risk, right? Or something of that nature. So those aspects are going to be really big. It's definitely a money, but I see it much more as this kind of universal bearer asset. This lump of gold I can show anybody and say, hey, look, like this is worth something, and so I'm credible. Right? You don't even need to know my name. I'm credible. Those kinds of things, right?
How do you see that fiat currency like dollars, euro, etc. has a future, or do you see Bitcoin replacing it? I'm trying to get a grasp of
I think they'll be around probably for my lifetime, because I think nation states are going to be around for my lifetime. I don't see, maybe the the central bank digital currency will be some kind of a basket, backed. Maybe we'll actually get some more sound dollars. I mean, there would have to be some kind of massive reset on this belligerent, debasement of monies that's been taking place over the last 35 years. I mean, the system is so bastardized, I'm not sure it can be corrected without serious pain. It's with just prolonged pain. But I don't see the dollar going away. I don't see, because there is some practicality to those kinds of things. In my opinion, I think, it's like the saying, is gold going to become? I don't think so. I don't think gold's going to be worthless. I think there's some means of exchange that still makes sense for centralized processes to be in control of, because it's more efficient to have those processes centralized. It's why it costs less to send some, Ripple versus Bitcoins, because it's a centralized server, right? I mean, it's a joke. And it's not immutable. So I think they'll probably be around. I won't hold a lot of them unless for some reason it makes sense, which relative to Bitcoin, I don't see it. So, I mean, Bitcoin is just the best bearer asset. It's the best money. So
yeah,
hold that and then, bleed out to all these other things that make maybe more practical sense for other reasons as you need.
Right. PUBLORD, what do you think about that? I mean, do you prescribe to Gresham's law like I do, saying that money is a winner takes all game? And I mean, personally, I don't think that central bank currency in the future in any way, it doesn't matter if it's backed, that it can compete with Bitcoin. But what's your take, PUBLORD?
Well, yeah, we talked previously, like right now to me, it's a pure store of value right now. And you can already see, someone like Michael Saylor coming in is going to hold it for 100 years. Or you have people that the community, everyone's trying to get rid of as much fiat as they can to buy Bitcoin. So yeah, absolutely. I think we have a few years at just being a store of value, and more companies finding it as a store of value, that price will go on. Yeah, eventually, who knows if they're going to get rid of it, if they're going to try to tie tokens, Bitcoin-backed tokens to people. Like you say, the dollars will be here for some time. It'll take a slow chance. Look, from the internet of the early 90s till today, that 30-year period was just crazy. What you could do, and no one had the forethought, or even at that time, things like online banking, and even this conference calls, and so yeah, can't wait to see the next 10, 20 years how this really changes.
Yeah, I mean, I give fiat currency will be around for the next 6 years. I think it'll play a role for the next 6 years. Then I think it's game over around after the next halving.
Dennis, I think what your lack of you're equating competition to outcome, right? And when it comes to nation states, man, they don't need to compete to survive. They have guns and stuff. They force you to use their money. And the post office can't compete. They're still going to be around because they're subsidized by this centralized power, right? So I think that as long as they're around, they will demand it. You have to pay taxes to them, right? I mean, are they going to accept Bitcoin for taxes? Maybe they'll want to, but they probably, to track better, they probably want you to use their, central bank digital currency.
Of course, they will want you to use fiat currency or whatever. If they want to rebrand it as central bank digital whatever. But I think nation states has the problem of it is a lot easier for people not to pay tax when transactions all of a sudden start happening peer to peer, instead of through a bank where you are asked questions what the transaction was. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't pay that tax. I'm just saying I'm just saying that when it becomes possible, water flows with it where there's least resistance, and according to gravity. And if people have a financial incentive to not tell about the profitable actions that they should pay tax on, if it's very easy not to state those, I think there will be a lot of people that will not pay the tax. So that is a defunding to some extent of the nation state. So how much can they actually force people to use an inferior money? I don't think they will have a good chance of that, but we'll see. This is what makes it interesting. This is what makes.
I just think they'll take our tax dollars, and to your water example, they'll just dam it up. They'll dam up the peer-to-peer in whatever way they can. They'll try with Bitcoin, right? And they won't be able to succeed, but they'll get you somewhere. They'll get you on the on-ramp. They'll get you at your place of employment. They'll get you somehow, because at the end of the day, you're living in the land that they claim sovereign to the people, right? And I mean, I do not underestimate the lengths that they'll go to prevent themselves from being defunded. Right. I put nothing past them.
So, they will go all the way, and they don't care about your life. That's for sure. Right. Still, I don't think that'll be enough. But we'll see. It's very interesting.
I hope you're right that it's never that issue.
We will find out in our lifetime. That I'm very sure about, though. Within the next 10 years, a lot of things will happen with Bitcoin itself. I mean, if you look at the price trajectory Bitcoin has after halvings, after the next halving, Bitcoin could go to like 30-40% of global monetary value. And when that happens, I think a lot of people will realize that Bitcoin actually is coming and sucking out value of fiat currency. And when that happens, it becomes you want to escape fiat currency moment, and people, it'll be like a vortex, a black hole, and sucking in all the value. But it will be interesting. But the next halving is going to be very, I think, powerful. But there's people as well. We spoke about this before. Going online, Preston Pish, for instance, was in Stephen Levere saying that he believes that it will happen in this halving. He thinks there's a good chance, as I understand, that we're going hyper-Bitcoinization now in this epoch. That there won't come a crash in a bear market. So that he's very bullish.
That's very bullish.
You know what? I can't disagree with him. I mean, this year you got Michael Saylor coming out, Even Square, all these companies, but that we didn't expect. I mean, I can't wait to see what 2021 brings. What is the next big company to come in, or small country? And if it does, he's right. This may be the epoch that we just don't pull back.
Right. I will say this.
I was gonna say, I mean, you guys make a great case, and I love it. I mean, I love hearing it. I wish it to be true too. And I can see it happening. I don't know if I'm reserved or what, but I just see volatility on the horizon, and not just upward volatility, I guess. But
you're setting yourself up to be positively surprised, and that's a nice thing. That's a good thing.
I guess I'm defensive with my expectations, I guess.
Right. I will say this though. I have an indicator. I've mentioned it before here on the Toxic Happy Hour, that whether I believe we're going hyper-Bitcoinization now or later, and I still believe the next epoch. So the good news for those that do not want it to happen, that do want to see a bear market so they can stack some more cheap sats, which I personally, I think that will happen. I believe we'll have the bear market and have a longer period of time to accumulate. But my indicator, as I've mentioned before, is whether people in my family, my sister and my mother, whether they will be open to buying Bitcoin or not. And if they are, if my mother is especially being the most conservative, then I think it's game over for fiat. Then I think we're going hyper-Bitcoinization. I've God knows I've tried hard, but I kind of got a rejection on that argument the last couple of days. It's not happening, and to me, that's a strong indicator that we're just not ready yet. We'll see. Maybe it's different 1 year from now, but I think throughout this epoch, she will not want to own any of that dangerous Bitcoin, which I really see as the most conservative investment right now. The more you look at it, and especially looking at, sorry,
I said couldn't agree more.
Right? Yeah, it's the safest place to put your money, because all other assets are kept up by fake artificially cheap interest rates. Having interest rates at negative or at 0 or a quarter point is very artificial. And when Bitcoin replaces fiat currency, then central bank no longer can set an artificial interest rate. So when interest rate goes up to like a market level, say, I don't know what that is, because we haven't been at free market for interest rates for, you know, I don't know, a century. Then that interest rate will be higher, maybe 5-8%, and then assets come tumbling down. So that's why I look at stocks and real estate as risky investments right now. They make sense to people that haven't investigated Bitcoin, because it's a place where they can escape the dilution of fiat currency. But when we get a normal free market interest rates, they're going to come crashing down. I think like 1929 kind of crash, but Bitcoin won't crash, because that is the needle that is popping this artificial monetary system. So I see it as the safest place to put money, and it bothers me. I can't get my mother to understand that this is safe. It's not risky. This is conservative.
Well, be a good boy. Be a good boy. Buy your mom some Bitcoin. Have her own little side stash for her, and then when it happens, you can say, "Look what I did for you."
That's right.
Exactly. Yeah.
But Denver, you got your family on board. You're mining Bitcoin with your dad. Your dad is stacking.
Oh, I mean, if anybody thinks that came easy, they're funny. I mean, to get him to part with his own money on my wild hair idea that I got from being in the oil and gas industry for 8 months, and the one that my bosses laughed in my face about. Yeah, no, I came over. I would just jam PowerPoint presentations in his face. He'd be in his office. I just walk down. I just start talking. Like, I wouldn't even ask him if he has time. I just start, spitting facts to him. Like, hey, listen, this is the reality of upstream energy production. This is the part we could be, in. And man, he, his biggest reservation, and I think it's important to share his perspective, just because it's much different from mine, and I think a lot of ours is, the way he looked at it was, Bitcoin is this tiny problem. It's like a zit on the government's leg or their ass, and they don't care about it. It doesn't even bother them. But once it becomes like, once it starts to hurt and once it starts to swell, they're just going to come pop it and get rid of it, and it'll be over. That was kind of his metaphor for how he thought this might go, right? So once the government realizes this tool, they're going to smash it, because it undermines their ability, like you were saying, to have their thumb on the financial system. And but I guess slowly he came around to the fact that would be really hard for them to do. Even if they made it illegal, that wouldn't shut it down or stop people from being able to do what we're doing with it. And it would just make criminals. And then, at the end of the day, you have people that could just flee to another jurisdiction, right? I mean, there'd have to be some global world order to shut this down. And that would mean that all energy and all internet service would have to be, under the thumb of somebody. And, even then we got Blockstream and stuff, and we could, we got satellites and whatever else. So those things he slowly came around to. It's funny that you brought up your mom, because my mom bought like $100 of Bitcoin at she almost bought Michael Saylor's price. I think it was like, she was like 11,200 or something like that. And of course, right after it fell to like 10, right after she put like $100 in or something. But I just told her, I was like, Mom, just hang on, right? And of course now she's like all like, she still pays attention to the price, because me and my dad are invested. But now she sends me texts before I even get an alert, and she's like, oh my gosh, it's almost at 14. And so that's when it happens, it's euphoric in a way, from because you feel like you're shouting into the void for so long, and then it's discouraging, right? People look at you like this kid, he must be brainwashed, like, I wonder what cult he got in. And it's like frustrating as hell, right?
It's what I keep saying. I mean, I got involved in internet back in '96, and telling about people about internet and the future and how fantastic it was and how it's going to change the world back in '97, '96 was easier than telling people about Bitcoin in 2020. And Bitcoin's been around for 11 and a half years now, almost 12 years. And at that stage, people had only known about Bitcoin for 3-4 years. That was easier than Bitcoin now. I guess government propaganda certainly has helped a lot.
Yeah, well, that's a crazy. I mean, you just made me think of the fact that and plus money has now. If we say Bitcoin is money, I mean Bitcoin is information. That's all it is. It's a ledger, and the information from that ledger proves that you haven't spent this UTXO, right? So money has just become information and encrypted information, and I think selling people on information like the internet maybe is easier than selling them on money, even though now we're talking about the same thing. Because it's money, man, it's red flags, and everybody's shields are up. Nobody wants to get duped and robbed. So yeah, that's an interesting dichotomy. It's an interesting comparison, I think.
So I was thinking earlier, because you were talking about government coming that has the guns, has all of this, but the nice thing with these companies comes is how does the government now tell people that are holding publicly traded companies how do you outlaw Bitcoin when all these publicly traded companies are putting it on their balance sheet? It just makes it a messy scab to try to pick for them. And now in every boardroom that just saw MicroStrategy up 20%, 25% in a few months, they now have we talked about this before, a fiduciary responsibility to their stockholders to possibly list Bitcoin. So that's why I'm bullish for the next couple of years. It's all the companies coming in.
Oh yeah, I mean the corporate treasury aspect of it, Guy. I couldn't echo that more, man. I think the energy side, like the mining side, is maybe the less known, kind of behind the curtain. But what you're talking about, absolutely, every corporate treasury officer that isn't looking at Bitcoin is foolish and should be fired. I mean, it's just a fact, because they're not doing their due diligence. In other words, they're not doing their job. So yeah, I mean, that's a really powerful reality too. That shakes every boardroom across the world. So yeah. I couldn't agree more with you on that.
And I think one thing also that drives these companies and people in these companies, really, it's about they want to keep their job no matter what. Like, you got to do the safe thing. And we're looking at potentially, companies can be sued for not protecting shareholder value on the balance sheet.
Yeah.
And you don't do that with fiat currency.
I mean, that's funny. I would love, that would be an awesome headline, right? Company sued for not buying Bitcoin by shareholders. I mean, I mean, does it get any better than that? I don't think so. No, that would be fantastic. Is it going to be a reality? Doubtful. Doubtful.
Well, that's why, at 20,000, we'll say loosely all-time high of 20,000, but Bitcoin hits that point again. Now every company's got to see that MicroStrategy basically doubled their money. How can they from 11,111 to over 20,000 now? How can they ignore that? So that's why, to me, the all-time high is really when it's going to get crazy.
Right, because that brings the attention, right? That brings the news headlines. That brings the people that all of a sudden get FOMO, and a lot of people FOMO and buy, but a lot of people FOMO and research and then buy a lot more, right? And so the FOMO researchers will be kicked into gear. The executives that are going to be the guy that pitches why they need to now get involved and be the hero. They're going to happen. Yeah, you're right. It's these slow waves, these ripples.
So what was it? I know you just said you got in early 2018. I'm a December 2017 alumni, and I sort of FOMO'd in. I had a friend that was telling me about it, and I checked it out and fell down that rabbit hole. But how many had you heard of Bitcoin before that, but just hadn't really paid attention? And was it the FOMO that got you in?
No, it's kind of different than that. I had a buddy, a really good, almost a brother to me. He tried to sell me on Bitcoin more or less the entire car ride from Telluride to Denver, and that's about 6 hours for people who don't know. Because him and I had just been to a wedding, and we were driving back to Denver and I was gonna have to drive him to the airport. We got stuck in traffic even by the airport, and he was trying to sell me Bitcoin. Like, he wasn't trying to sell me he was trying to sell me on the idea. And I thought the concept was really cool. I didn't have any idea of what a decentralized anything was, right? Something I didn't understand, that cryptography could ensure that their information could be passed between parties without some kind of central arbiter. So those kinds of things weren't settled. But the big problem I had was I didn't understand how it was produced, like how it was issued, why there was those kinds of things. And he didn't have a ton of good answers for me. but I should have bought. I mean, I was a fool not to put $100 in, right? It would have been, I think at that time, it'd have been like half a coin, I think, so, I just kind of never didn't think about it again until when I was in the energy industry. I was just sitting on my computer all day, and I was, constantly looking at news articles, and I was seeing the articles about Bitcoin failing and how the scam was over and the bubble popped and everyone's got robbed. And so I was curious because, my friend, I was curious to go figure out how this scam worked. Right. And I was kind of curious to figure out this mining thing. And in the midst of trying to figure out the mechanics of how these people got duped, I figured out they didn't get duped. Right. I figured out. And then I started thinking, I think this also solves this gas problem that I'm hearing about every day. Like how, and it just serendipitously came together. So no, I didn't FOMO. It was crashing. I think my first buy was at like $7,800 before it even went back down to $3. So I mean, it was passing 10 and everybody was like, oh, it's over. Like it's definitely going to die now. The death, mining death spiral. It's all. And so I was curious.
Yeah, I was excited, man, because like I said, my first buy was over $17,000, and when it dropped under 10 and 8, and I'm thinking, well, look, I believe in this more every day, and if I believe in this, these prices are insane. I can make up for loss. I can make up for my bad entry point. And
when it dollar cost average your way down, man. I mean, definitely. No, and dude, I mean, the same thing. I mean, I remember when I was first in and it fell from 6 to 3, and when there was the BCH BSV fork, and I remember like having this initial panic and then getting really excited because I was like, well, it doesn't change anything. Like this is just speculation, and this doesn't change the core value of what this thing is. It's not broken yet.
I had no idea about miners. Yeah, I didn't know any of that, miners and halvings and all of this. And I don't know if Anders has a good story on when the first time he heard about it, but he dismissed it because of the wording that was used by some of the people and didn't understand it.
No, it's just they're just defensive because it's money again, right? You err on the side of being safe and cautious.
Pound the like button for the fantastic chat we always have going. Really nice and bullish. I love it. And we've finally got BTC Moon Guy in here, who has never, I don't know how he does it, but he has never failed to join a Toxic Happy Hour. Pound the like button for yourself, guys, in the chat. Love the action there.
I think he's Satoshi Nakamoto. So obviously he's retired and has time on his hands. BTC Moon Guy.
Right, he had that number, what he wanted to achieve, like 1 million Bitcoin, and I'll retire. I think that took him like 1.5 years or something of mining, and then he's like, all right, I'm leaning back. You take the keys to the project.
I can't imagine 25 Bitcoin per block. I mean, I would just be 12.5 was amazing enough as it were, and I only had that for a short amount of time.
Well, no, it's short. Yeah, it started at 50. Remember,
I know,
it started.
That's
I think
what I mean.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Even 25 to me is like plus fees. Like, oh my god, I jump up and down when I see a block over like 8 right now. So
So Denver, there's a question coming up from George. And wait, let me get it here. He's saying, tell us about Patagonia. I have no idea what it is.
Oh yeah. Oh no, I posted some pictures on Twitter, I think a couple days ago or something. But no, in between my sophomore and junior year of college, I went down and I enrolled in a school called Knowles, which is out of Lander, Wyoming. Right? It's a national outdoor leadership school. It's a school you can go to learn how to do crevasse rescue, rock climbing, kayaking. You can get certified to do these things as a profession if you wanted. And as well as like get WFR certification, wilderness first response, and you could continue on doing EMT. So I enrolled with them to do their year-long program down in Coyhaique, Chile, right? So down in near Tierra del Fuego, but not that far south. And so I got in, and so I flew down there, and the first 3 months were pretty much mountain travel and glacier travel. So for like, I think we were sleeping in a tent for, it was like 96 days in a row. Did something like 400 miles through, southern Patagonia and through the glaciers. And I mean, it was unbelievable. You know, we had to plan everything beforehand, where we had certain rendezvous on certain days at certain river crossings with pack mules that would drop off a bunch of food that we could then carry on, because you can only carry about, you know, max 13 days of food before you're overloaded and risking pretty serious injury. But it was rugged, man. It was you know, we were 36 hours from rescue, best case scenario. So if somebody like fell and had a compound fracture and, you know, they were going to die in 5 hours, I mean, they were going to die in 5 hours. So everything was really serious. You know, our best rescue was a helicopter that hopefully the Chilean military could provide if weather was good. So like, you know, it was a really serious expedition. And then after those 90 days, the second semester of the course, if you will, we divided up between kayaking through the fjords. So we did about, you know, we did a few hundred miles of the coast of Chile. And then we did about 45 days of rock climbing. So I did that, you know, wake up every day and just rock climb for 12 hours a day. It's unbelievable, especially when you've been waking up and walking 12 miles a day with 65 pounds on your back. Like, rock climbing is the easiest, most fun thing in the world. And certainly a blast. And then we lived, you know, we went and lived with some locals. Everybody kind of divided up, and I went and lived on a ranch with a gaucho and his wife and their, you know, 500 sheep and 17 dogs, and help them build a fence, help them take care of the animals, help them shear sheep. Just kind of got, you know, and I'm fluent in Spanish, so I was able to, you know, really get to know these people and kind of immerse myself in the culture. And it was just, I mean, it was just the best thing to do. It was way better than college, right? I mean, I learned way more about life in that process than any classroom. So, I mean, it was something I'd recommend, but it was a hell of a commitment. I think we started 34 guys in the class, and I think 26 graduated. The rest couldn't handle it.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, you know, I think you and I talked before about, you know, obviously the quality steaks and red wine, but yeah, I've been to through Chile, I've been to Paraguay, Brazil. Yeah, South America. Yeah, it's a pretty cool adventure down there, man. Glad you could enjoy that.
Yeah. It's really virgin and wide open. Like, there's, especially where we were, it's like, it didn't look like people had ever been here before. And, you know, it's amazing wine, amazing food. I ate so much lamb. I can't even tell you how much lamb I ate. It's pretty much all we ate for the time. But yeah, it's a good time.
Awesome. Very interesting. Nothing like real life and nature. It beats honestly most things. That's what we, I guess, through millions of years is what we are conditioned to, right? Enjoy sitting around the fire in the open space. Really nice. Poppy, take it away. Guys, I actually need to go refill this. You think you can handle it in 3-4 minutes?
Yeah, we got it, man.
Yeah.
All right.
So I gotta ask Guy.
Yeah.
When did you start going down the meme generation rabbit hole? When did they just start popping into your head before you even wanted to think about creating them? Like, when they start coming natural?
Yeah, you know what's funny? I started following some of the folks at Citadel 21 and all that, and I always loved the memes they were putting out. Just so powerful, and you know, it's such a different way to express yourself. Some people are naturally good at, you know, writing and all this, but when you can combine a popular image with a different slogan, there's just a different way of viewing Bitcoin, different way of expressing yourself with Bitcoin. So, you know, it was probably 3 months ago, I guess. I was just you know, bored messing around, so I downloaded a couple of meme generators. And, you know, sometimes you have an idea of the meme you want, or what you're trying to say, and look for the meme. Sometimes you see the meme itself, and it gives you an idea. It just depends. And you get inspiration by everyone you follow on Bitcoin Twitter. You know, I did one yesterday with a quote from Knut Svanholm, and you just run with it and put it out there. Just a good time. And yeah, we have there's a whole little meme movement, I like to call it, on Twitter, and it's fun to see the creativity of people.
Well, yeah, it's really yeah, it's creative. A lot of the times it communicates a message faster and more efficiently than a body of words would.
Oh yeah.
Right. So yeah, I think I mean it's a lot of fun. Plus, I mean, sometimes it just hits home, right? It hits you right where you're already thinking, and that's when it reaffirms an idea, it can be powerful.
Yeah, probably the greatest one for me this year is Printer Goes Burr. That one's going to be around forever, and it nails it in three words. It nails the entire problem with the system.
Well, and it's a huge problem that a lot of people, they don't know about, right? So it's like this. I mean, by the way, it's a problem everyone should know about. But when you tell them, their jaws drop. They're always like, "How much money was printed this year relative to the total supply?" And they always freak out, right? So yeah, I think it actually matters. As dumb as that may sound, I think those messages matter.
Yeah, it absolutely drives the narrative. So yeah, welcome back.
Hey, you've taken care of animals, right? Right, Danish. Were you talking about your goats earlier?
My what? My goats?
Yeah.
I don't have any. So what happened? What happened while I was gone? I can see something in the chat about Poppy is freezing. Somewhat. There's a lot of Spanish there. I have no idea what that means, unfortunately. And then it sounds like
he narrates Bitcoin.
It sounds like Bitcoin Camp's type of party. What did I miss? You guys partying?
No, we were just talking about the meme community, sort of how I got started, and yeah, how fun those things are.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we got some great memers in the chat. We've got Greg, PUBLORD.HODL, yourself, Poppy, PUBLORD.meme master.
You know, one thing I'd like to ask you guys, I mean, because I came at Bitcoin from this, I guess, maybe different perspective than a lot. Like, what was your first impression, especially you, Guy? I mean, you'd said that you were already FOMO buying, if you will, and putting money into it. What was your first impression when you tried to start learning about Bitcoin mining and how that was all? I mean, were you just easy to trust the information you were reading, or were you eager to try to, figure that out?
Yeah, the information today, obviously 3 years on, is much better than what we had to start with. I had a friend of mine, and we were talking one day, and she was telling me how angry she was that her boyfriend didn't buy Bitcoin when they had a couple friend who had started in 2013, and she saw that price go to 20,000, and I was saying, Bitcoin, what the hell is this? And so I just started buying a little bit, and reading up on it. And I was already prepared. I had already read, The Creature from Jekyll Island. I knew that there was a problem with the money. The two things I loved the most here was, one, it was the fixed supply, but two is that it's unconfiscatable at the end of the day. As long as you're holding your private keys, it's an asset class. They can come take your house, your cars, your bank accounts. But listen, you could have a stash of Bitcoin. It's such a unique asset class.
It certainly is. It's the best ever.
Yeah,
it's the best money the world has ever seen. Like, if you look at the properties that commodities are rated on whether they will work as money or not. I've gone through it before, but you really have close to, well, I mean, you need scarcity. Well, it's 100% cap, so it's 100% scarce, really. Then you need portability. Bitcoin is infinite portable, really. Well, at least on Earth. You can even carry it in your memory. You walk through customs with $100 million worth of Bitcoin just in your brain, because it's about having the key. It's not something physical. Divisible is 100%. Divisible is infinite divisible, because once Satoshi is too expensive, we can further subdivide that with a soft fork. I've been told. It's durable. It doesn't break. It's no gold dust disappearing or anything like that. So that's it. It's infinite durable. The only thing we're not at maximum infinite value yet is fungibility, like privacy. We're not there yet, but that tech is being built. And then there's two things that Bitcoin introduces, because it's decentralized because it's digital, and that is it's unconfiscatable, and there's permissionless value transfer. You can send Bitcoin to enemies of the state, exposing bad things that the state does. You can fund them like it was done with WikiLeaks. It's just by far the best money the world has ever seen. You can't, like, the only thing that is missing a little bit is the built-in or the privacy. But if you want privacy today, you can still do it with CoinJoin, for instance, or Whirlpool, or whatever they're called.
Right. But I mean, that's there's a cost to that to some degree, right? And there's it's a little rigid, but you're right. What was your first impression of mining when you went to investigate that, Danish? How'd you come away from that journey?
Well, I mean, first off, since I'm not a very technical person, I knew it was never a tool for me to even look into. I felt at that stage it was already specialized, and I also knew that, like, it seemed everyone was saying, look, if I had bought Bitcoin instead of mining equipment at the time, I would have actually had more Bitcoin. So I think, like, today you really need to be in a situation like you, where you have free power, or very close to basically free energy. Then, I don't know the numbers, of course, in your business, but then I'm sure it can make sense. But definitely it'll be an edge to be a miner once that Bitcoin has reached its full potential. There's no more value growth in the GDP growth. So, buying Bitcoin to hold it as an investment is not as lucrative as now. But mining and picking up both the fresh supply coming in, the mining reward now 6.25, next time 3.125, etc. That plus transaction fees will make it I think think business as we move along in this decade and the next.
Yeah, I hope you're right. I mean, I'll say, I think you touched on it there too, is one thing I'd like to add is I don't know how miners will survive and last unless they're solving an energy problem, right? Whether they're either helping to displace energy that can't be brought to market, or there's actually waste energy, which, some energy generation processes have. Because I don't know how they're going to compete. So I'm interested to see how some of these big miners that maybe announced they're buying X amount of machines from Bitmain before they even release. I wonder how many of them are either one going to follow through, but two last, right? I mean, because of their power source, I'm curious to see how long it'll last. But yeah, sorry, you were going to say something, Guy. I didn't mean to jump in there.
Oh no, not at all. I was listening intently here. Yeah, I think that's fantastic.
Well, if we have a little a break here, I just want to point out that I'll definitely be going to Bitcoin 2021 in Los Angeles next year. I believe it's April, May, I think last day of April, first day of May, those 2 days. And we had CK on last week, and we have a discount code on the tickets for you guys if you're paying with Dirty Fiat, which is Toxic21 is the discount code. There was a link in that video description. I forgot to put it in the description now. I'll make sure to, in all future Toxic Happy Hours we do, to have both the code and the link to purchase those tickets. But otherwise, the code is Toxic21. You can just go to their website. It's held by Bitcoin Magazine, and MG Smith 4 is coming. He got the code. Looking forward to meet you. Bitcoin Cam also, I think, bought a ticket I saw. What about you, Denver? Would you have? Do you think you'll be joining Bitcoin 2021 next year in Los Angeles?
Yeah, I think I might. I've spoken with Joe Rogers a good bit, and CK's awesome. So, I've talked to them about it, and I think I might go. BitBlock Boom looked like a lot of fun as well. So, I was at least considering going to that. So I think it all depends, right? I mean, what kind of state is the world going to be in a year? I have no idea. I mean, I might not want to show my face around Bitcoin if the price goes too high. So, I think I'll play it by ear, but I'm certainly interested, and if it makes sense, I'll be there.
Right. I'll do my best. I know, Pablo, unfortunately, you're traveling in your non-public jet at the time. Maybe not yours, but yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, if I can make it, I will, for sure.
I mean, I've only heard good things, right?
Sorry?
I mean, that's pretty much all the reviews I've heard are good things.
Yeah. So last year, like a year ago, I bought my ticket for 2020 because I heard 2019 was great in San Francisco. But then, of course, it got canceled this year. So that ticket has been moved to next year. And then it's moving to Los Angeles, where I live. So I really look forward to it. And regarding whether, what the world looks like, then I can just say that I went to the most amazing Halloween party Saturday, had a blast, still feel the effects today. So I'll be partying next year for sure with fellow Bitcoiners. I mean, it's really part of why PUBLORD and I started doing these live streams. You have that conversation with other Bitcoiners, and you just go down the rabbit hole together and talk about different views on how and if Bitcoin will take over, and just have the greatest talks. And when you have all these family members who thinks you're an idiot, right? Then
it's an outlet.
Have some people you can actually talk Bitcoin with when you're so passionate about it. It is great. So I really look forward to next year for sure. Yeah,
I echo that. It's a pressure gauge that builds up, and you have to either you need a sounding board to get these ideas out. That's kind of half the reason I would go to my parents' house and say these things to my dad, is because I had to talk to somebody about them that would at least consider them to be possible. And so I couldn't echo that more, man. That would be my main reason for going to something like the Bitcoin convention, just to really interact with like-minded folk.
Yeah. But if nothing else, we'll definitely keep having toxic hours. This is what PUBLORD and I enjoy doing, and have been doing for 1.5 years. We just started putting them online. That's all.
Well, I'm glad you guys could have me. I'll come back anytime if you guys want it. I mean, this was a blast to talk to you guys. Plus, it's good to put some faces to some names and realize you're real human beings. It's nice.
Yeah, exactly. No, for sure. You'll be back. It's great to hang out with you and learn a lot more about Bitcoin mining. But to be honest, I probably need to re-watch this to really understand what you've been up to. So
right, exactly. So cool, man. Well, are we all good to go?
Yeah.
You have a back end, so why don't you do your final words and plugs and shout outs, whatever. And also for everyone out there, Denver Bitcoin's Twitter account, like always, is in the description below. So is PUBLORD, of course. Before I give you the final word, PUBLORD, how are you on time? Are we continuing, or it's late for you, right?
Yeah, it's getting pretty late here, and I got a pretty early day in my part of the world. So I'll probably have to pull the ripcord as well on this one for this show.
All right.
So
we're good to go. Let's give it to Denver Bitcoin first, and we'll end it off. And thanks for participating, Denver. Thanks for coming on. It was great to meet you, man. You go.
Yeah, it's great to meet you guys. I was happy to be here. I'd say as a send off, much like Guy said earlier, I think the Bitcoin becoming this potential corporate treasury reserve asset is really exciting. I think it's going to be front page kind of bullish news as price accumulates. But I'd say don't stop looking at the energy side of Bitcoin. Don't stop looking at how this flips the entire global energy market on its head, because those implications are going to be profound as well. Exciting, but something always to keep an eye on, and maybe even more of a bullish sentiment to those who understand energy than something just like a corporate treasury officer is buying it. So pay attention to both sides, and don't try to beat the returns. Don't trade it. You're not gonna. So
buy and hodl.
Buy and hodl.
Thanks, Denver. PUBLORD, final words before we tell people how terrible it is to hold fiat.
No, like we were discussing, I like the informal nature of the guests we have on the show, or people that reach out, people that we just message and they want to come on and just talk Bitcoin. That's the best part of the show to me. Very little preparation, and we just naturally go with it. So yeah, thanks, Denver. Good to finally meet you, and yeah, look forward to next time. And good luck with your company.
Hey, thanks, guys. Hey, I had a lot of fun, guys. Till next time. Huh?
Right. And on that note, please remember not to hold more fiat currency than you can afford to lose. It's a built-in policy. It's known to be very dangerous to hold fiat currency. So really reconsider how much you want to have in that falling value currency. On that note, keep stacking sats and see you on the next one. Bye.
Yeah, take care, guys.